Let's talk about the map at hand and see where we end up going between these teams. Now, as you can see, Coastline and Oregon are both grayed out, which means that we have to go to one of the other 5 maps. Bank, Clubhouse, Consulate. Will it be Villa or Border? It always seems like, there you go. Oh. It always seems like it's Villa, the last map banned. Is almost, if you draw straws and you say, well, one of us is going to have to ban it. We'll go to Border, one of Latin America's favorite maps.
Yeah, it is. It's been one of the most played maps in general, LATAM. As we know, it was in Playday #1 for this season. It was every team in Latin America played Border.
Every single team.
Every single one of them. So, and since then, it has not gone down in how much it's been played. For T1, they have only played it twice this season, but on BootKamp side, they have managed to bring themselves here 4 times, 3 losses, and 1 win, but that 1 win was against Liquid, and it was only 2 weeks ago, which is the most relevant of all of those matches.
So, how do you think this is going to go down? Is it going to be as close as the numbers suggest? Is there going to be a breakout winner? Do you have a favorite here? And it's going to be BootKamp. And I think that's a pretty smart bet with how BootKamp has played over the last couple weeks versus Team 1's performance. And, of course, BootKamp, as I said, cannot stress enough. I think they impressed at Montreal. 47, 31, and 22% for a draw. I feel like 48 hours ago we said, oh, well, draws don't tend to break 10%. Well, they did that time around, that's for sure.
That is an abnormally high draw percentage right there, but I'm not surprised given that we are looking at the 4th and 5th place teams here. Though, as you stated, and I would agree, BootKamp have been looking decent, better than they had in the recent history as of late. And T1, on the other hand, in my mind, they've just been on a slow descent right now. With their performances in the last 2 weeks, it's not been great for T1. Losing to Pain 1-6, and yes, I know it was a big part of that was 9XT, but 5-5 against NIP as well. Those are just not results that you're looking to have as a team in 4th place. They could easily be right now a lot higher in those standings if they had better success in those matchups. And they still have to play FaZe and Liquid later in the season, as well as Immortals. So, the end of the season here for T1 is looking a lot more complicated than it ought to be.
I mean, in North America, we just talked about this with, I believe it was Obey, who's got, of their remaining 4 matches in Obey, 3 of them are against top 4 teams. Yeah. And it's when you are looking to climb and continue to grow, that's what we said about strength of schedule. You've got an easy schedule now. Take advantage of it. Get the points while you can, because it's a high likelihood that you're not going to be able to walk away when you're playing teams like FaZe, when you're playing teams like Immortals, like Liquid in the home stretch. These are teams that are going to be looking to get every single point they can because they want to go to LAN. And if you're kind of sitting in the middle of the standings, it can hurt you.
It certainly can. So, of course, both teams going to be vying to get as many points as they can in this match. Though, pressure's definitely on T1 in my mind, as BK have been having a solid performance so far. All right. So, we're going to be actually having, I believe, just a quick sidestep here. We're not actually going to be, I'm not sure what's going on here, but we might not be jumping into the match just this second.
No, we'll come back to us. We'll take you through a beautiful view of a Border, and then come back to us and say hello.
No, we were just perusing the site, the maps.
Somebody dropped the moment the map started.
It happens.
It's just really unfortunate timing.
Yeah.
Just in case you're curious as to what happened.
No, what was really happening there is we were just looking at the map. This is what we're going to be playing.
We're just showing you how
Border.
It looks. All right, do you forget what Border looks like?
Probably never seen Border before.
Here it is.
There's a lot of sand. And
a lot of some walls.
They're all the same color. It's a very monotone
very sand-colored map.
Yeah.
Very.
We have neutral. A lot of maps that are all like kind of the same.
Villa is a very similar color. I feel like Canal is as well.
Chalet, Consulate.
I think Chalet is similar. I guess a Consulate.
Consulate and Chalet. Yeah, I mean, Consulate's. Yeah, it's pretty much all just the same color. And Chalet, I mean, with the snow everywhere. I mean, the inside's different color than the outside, but it's pretty much the same aesthetic everywhere.
Maps are colorful, like Cafe Dostoevsky.
Coastline.
Tower.
Tower's kind of monotone as well.
Tower's got some different colored rooms. Great.
True, but wow, whatever.
I feel like just saying the word tower, there are many angry people right now.
Yeah. People angry in the chat right now. Tower's really bad.
What is he saying about Tower?
Favela. plane?
Yacht.
Yacht.
Yacht is very similar in color. To be fair, you want to talk about snow on Chalet. Yacht is a snowy haven in the beautiful Hudson Bay ice field.
There are also a lot of
in the
people
ices of Hudson Bay
who would defend Yacht, who think it, Yacht's a solid map. I think they're wrong, but personal opinion, right? Anyway, we're not playing on any of those.
Aesthetically, it's a nice map. I like Yacht, but I mean, it's not. I think most people would say that because it's not in the Pro League map pools and the ranked map pools as competitive as others.
No, it's not. It's really not.
Blowing ice, shimmery ice, ambient noise. It's Goddess's favorite map.
Really?
She's an avid Yacht apologist.
Apologist. Okay. I didn't. All right.
She loves it.
I did not know that. That is new information to me.
It's literally in her Twitter bio.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to check it, but I can't because we're doing this. Why have you done it?
Early caster doesn't even know
About Goddess's favorite map.
I don't even know about players' habits.
Yeah.
Can't read that in a book.
Are you making fun of my notebook, Parker?
No.
Are you angry at me for having a notebook with information in it?
I also have a notebook with information in it, but
we both do.
It looks like we're going to finally be able to get
Yay!
into the matchup for you. Border awaits you here between Team One and BootKamp, a very aggressive team that is on the ascendancy in BootKamp, who've looked a little bit better than we saw before, versus Team One, a team that has sat in a similar position to BootKamp, but hasn't exactly had the best results over the last 2 weeks. We'll load in, fire it up, and we'll see the first ban. It's going to go to Team One, and they're going to ban Maverick.
Bye, Maverick. So, Maverick, an operator that, as we've all seen recently, has come under fire as being very, very useful in very many situations, mostly by virtue of the fact that he is silent. You can open up a hole, and no one will be aware of that hole until they're dead. So, it can be complicated, and getting rid of him is basically as compulsory as getting rid of Lion at this point.
It also does appear like they're going to have a sub today, so Falls, who is a sub on the team, has replaced iBlacks for this match. So we're not certain if that is permanent or if he's just going to be a stand-in.
But it's happening.
But for Team One, they've got their sub in Falls. So we'll see how he performs today. Not a surprise to see Clash banned out here, either.
No. Yeah, both of the new operators have seen a lot of bans recently. I think at the beginning of the second half of this season, some people were kind of unsure where they were going to fit in. But as time has progressed, they've become more and more commonly banned. We'll see if that trend continues. There are so many other operators that you need to get rid of. So Armory, Lockers, Archives. The defense for T1 to start things off. The operator lineup is going to be pretty standard here. No Echo being played despite the lack of the ban there, but you still have the Maestro and Valkyrie combination, so it's not exactly going to be too bad for T1. They will have plenty of utility to stop that push in through the A wall.
Yeah, no, I mean, nothing really that surprising that we're seeing here on
no, nothing at all
on either side of things.
That's pretty standard stuff. I mean, the IQ is going to be really, really helpful here. I guess the most, you know what? I think back to like a year ago, and when I say Ashe is the most abnormal thing between these lineups, a year ago that would be unthinkable, but now it's, yeah, Ashe is the weirdest thing here.
She's almost been single-handedly forced out of the meta by Zofia.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, not just Zofia, a combination.
Well,
and others.
I mean, yes and no, but Zofia has on a lot of different maps. Zofia does take her role quite reliably.
You also really need just need the utility from other operators like IQ as well. I mean, why would you bring an Ashe when you can bring an IQ who can gather information? M-King eating a lot of damage early on. That was an ill-advised peak.
Yeah, M-King walks away from that. He'll get reset from his team, and he'll get picked back up. It looks like that the long range that we saw here And Intact goes down to Ion. That's the Jaeger who's running the extended barrel on the carbine to try and maximize his damage output from a long range. Don't really see the extended barrel quite often attached to guns, but
yeah, widely considered to be
probably the least desirable barrel on most weapons, except for maybe the UMP, which is the one gun that we tend to see it run a lot on.
Yeah, it really does kind of fall out of favor, I think, at this level of play. Most people considering headshots to kind of nullify its usage. Ion, though, with a run out, he narrowly escapes Duds. The 3-speed of the Ash, losing out there to the 3-speed of the Jaeger, and it looks like BootKamp are being, well, kind of held at bay due to these open angles. Not expecting such an open strategy from the defense, and now they're struggling to find favorable fights. But M-King will get the first for his team, and Panico goes down. As that happens, Paula going to start vaulting into Office. Falls will take Boar, the first kill for him on this team. GDN gets Paula as well, and it's just a slaughter here. M-King going to get a second one, but he will finally be finished off by Hugzord. And again, it's the open strategy, the unreinforced walls, the murder holes and rotation holes that have been established from T1 that actually managed to get them that round.
Also worth noting that we saw it just a couple times. The Valkyrie cameras of Team 1 situated in positions where they figured that BootKamp was going to entry from.
Yeah.
And they had 2 people sitting on cams for most of that round in both GDN as well as the Maestro, doing nothing more than just calling out information along with the Valkyrie. I mean, you relied a lot. You had the Maestro come off the cam to get a kill himself. You also had the Jaeger doing all the work in Ion. And that was just good coordination, as you said. The fact that they opened everything up. BootKamp did not look like they were very comfortable whatsoever traversing past all those open walls.
Yeah, and Paula's IQ, unfortunately, just did not work out. Didn't clear out the Valkyrie cams fast enough. The information was gathered by T1, and they were able to apply pressure to BootKamp before BootKamp even really got into the building. I mean, we did see eventually the attackers make their way in, but it was very shallow entry, and it was quickly rebuffed. So a nice defense for sure from T1, and something unexpected. You always like to see that. So Ventilation Workshop, the next bomb site for T1, of course, the very standard 2-site play here. And they're going to be setting up heavily on the top floor. I think that's wise given their success in the previous round. Usually, if you can make it work once, you can make it work twice. And if you can hold the top floor, you can certainly hold the floor beneath. So that's going to be the main strategy here for T1. Or at least that's what they're broadcasting with their current setups. Lots of holes that are being opened up from above to below, and that will allow them to dictate the site.
I'm interested to see how Falls is able to factor into this composition here, because iBlack's typically has not been a bad player to the team.
No.
Detrimental to any extent.
No, he's definitely been a formidable player there.
I mean, I don't have his full season stats available at my fingertips at this exact moment, but he's somebody that just anecdotally jumps into mind. And I mean, BootKamp first frag is going to go in their favor. It's going to go to Intact, and Hugzord, the Jaeger, will not be quite as successful as Ion was last time around. And look at this, the patience of Duds as Falls just wanders right into his line of sight. There's Panico to trade it off, but Boar is there at the long end of East Hallway. He's going to see them and punish him, and you'll lose the Castle, the Legion, and the Jaeger within the first minute. This defense is just completely crumpled for Team 1. You've got GDN playing on site down below. You've got Ion upstairs. That's really about it. A beautiful shot from Ion. Wow. That is a fadeaway if I've seen one. He'll drop through the hatch. Takes out M-King. It's a 2v3.
Yeah. And Intact is very lit up. As you can see, he will be felled by very likely a single bullet from either of these two defenders. Despite their low damage weapons, they can make it work. And it's just going to be slow going from here on out. The attack being so efficient in the early round means that they can now wait and drone things out, try to figure the best strategy in this scenario. Ion going to start moving his way up the main stairs. He could easily get a flank kill off if he manages to get an opportunity, but he's being peeked right now, and he will lose the fight to Paula. Good information from BootKamp, likely having a drone on those stairs. And now T1 were in an easily winnable situation. It's turned into a 1 versus 3, and not a favorable one, considering where GDN finds himself. He will down one attacker, but Paula able to finish him off, and BootKamp will take their first round.
I mean, that round was sort of over when BootKamp just waltzed in and got 3 picks right away.
Yeah.
Falls was trying to cover from just the wrong angle. And, I mean, yeah, Boar was there to trade it off, but at that point, then Boar gets himself killed. And when you lose 3 defenders that are playing very, very loose upstairs, you know, it looked like there was 4 members of Team 1 who had invested somewhat on that second floor, which is a bit of a high number. And I suspect that the idea was to kill time, maybe get a kill or 2, maybe lose a body and then drop back to site, as we saw from Ion. But a little bit too late there when you've lost 3 bodies in a minute. You're not expecting that early of a push, and you can't really drop through those rotates at that time. So Team 1 will obviously head back for their 3rd defense now.
They're going to go to ventilation.
Yeah, ventilation workshop downstairs. I don't know why it's...
Not sure what's going on here, but doubling up on the bomb site in this situation I think makes sense, given that we're on border. You got those 2 standard bomb sites in armory and ventilation, and then you will see tellers from time to time as well as customs, but it's just not crazy common because there are very few teams that will be winning on armory and ventilation both.
Yes.
So going to a 3rd site is not a foregone conclusion here, as it is on some maps.
And I mean, I think it's important as well to note that Border happens to be one of those few maps where it's okay if you go to a 3rd or 4th site, because customs is not a bad site to defend. Now, Mira is banned, of course, which makes that custom site a little bit harder to defend. A lot of times, actually, we've seen teams run a frost strat involving the customs hold when Mira isn't available, to try and challenge attackers to either have to take the Mira, or sorry, the frost, or the frost mat itself. Is usually the frost will play upstairs where that Mira spot would be, looking all the way down towards East Hallway. And then you've also got bathroom tellers, which honestly is a favorite of a lot of European teams. They will tend to favor that, especially the French teams that I'm thinking of, Millennium, Vitality in particular. They will usually head to that bathroom teller's spot and then defend it really aggressively from above. Now, a bit of a mixed bag as to whether it will actually work or not. It's not always going to be the case that it's going to work out for you, because typically the way that you defend that site revolves very heavily around your upstairs presence, and once that's gone, the whole site is going to fall with it. Some teams are really well versed at being able to flush you out, as we just saw on that round in particular, clear out the upstairs roamers before you can attack the site from below. So it's not the end of the world for Team 1 here if they have to go to another site, but you're right. You know, Armory is going to unlock no matter what after this. It's going to give them another crack at it after ventilation workshops here, and you know, they could possibly just run with the same 2 sites for 5 rounds. And
we've seen that so many times on Border from so many different teams, because again, you know, winning 2 defenses is something that takes a little bit, quite a lot of effort on this map. It's a very well balanced map between attack and defense, and that's what, you know, kind of catapulted it forward in the position in terms of Pro League and maps and what's considered to be most competitively viable. Border is definitely up there. It's seen less play in other regions, you know, aside from LATAM, North America and Europe. It's kind of declined, and you know, we see a lot of coastline kind of filling that gap, but it's still considered to be one of the more competitive maps out there, and it has a lot of versatility to it.
I think a big part of why we see it so infrequently, I think aligns with a lot of Oregon and possibly even Coastline too, is that it's routinely banned because one team will usually play it almost every week, right?
Yeah.
And then you end up, if one team plays it, or if one match plays it, it's banned for 2 teams for the next week, which means that it could be banned for half of the games just by itself. And I mean, yeah, I think you're right. It's a very competitive map. It's extremely well balanced, and a bit of a, let's just go back to that second round between Team 1 and BootKamp. A bit of a sloppy round from Team 1 overall. Very loose and disjointed roam. They got caught looking in different directions many times. They didn't seem to understand where BootKamp's push came from. And obviously, that's going to be problematic, because you have to be in a position where if you're going to roam, you got to have the intel, you got to have that info as to where the attackers are going to push from. because yeah, your job is mostly to kill time and maybe not get a pick or two, but you're not killing time if you're getting picked off in the first 60 seconds and putting your team at a 2v4 when there's still 2 minutes left on the clock.
It definitely looked like BootKamp were just catching T1 with their guard down. Really good timing, and sometimes you just need to get a little bit lucky for that to work out. It was also a case of BootKamp having great droning, allowing for their entry to push unabated, but no matter what, it was a nice take from BootKamp, and those open angles from T1 that we saw in the first round did not work out so well for them when they also had to account for the site. The big difference maker for me there was the fact that T1 still had to have 2 people downstairs. Because if they didn't have those 2 people downstairs, BootKamp would have just walked into the site, which meant less angles were being covered, which left the T1 defense on the top floor wide open because they opened the angles themselves. Anyway, we're going to see attempt number 2 from T1 now as they go to ventilation yet again for the 3rd round after being unsuccessful here. Of course, Armory will be available to them in the next round, so that will very likely be the next defense from this team. But if they cannot make ventilation work, then what we're going to see is a 3-2 half in favor of BootKamp in all likelihood.
Definitely something worth keeping an eye on is going to be, if I can use his pun as he's on screen right now.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's really not that funny.
No, you're right.
You're right. It was a pretty average joke.
You're right. I apologize for acclaiming it as such.
Thank you. One thing that I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on here and trying to look at is how is this roam going to be? Is it going to be disjointed? Is it going to be loose? Is it going to be one of those situations where they lose bodies early on? Because, I mean, hey, Team 1's roam when they were defending Armory upstairs was pretty darn good.
Yeah.
You know, they were able to just absolutely consume two members of BootKamp before they were even able to get inside the building, and it was BootKamp who really struggled transitioning from the exterior to the interior.
Well, like I said, I think that was due to the fact that T1 was allowed to have all 5 bodies upstairs, because then you can cover everything. You know, there are no gaps, no chinks in your armor, and BootKamp isn't allowed any opportunities to exploit them because of that. But here you have a situation where, yeah, you still have to have those 2 anchors downstairs, otherwise BootKamp is going to stroll into the site. So that leaves a lot of chinks, and here you can see, you know, BootKamp is going to exploit one of them. That's the main staircase that Duds is going to walk down and get a kill from with relative ease.
And I mean, it's going to be on to that. Looked like he vaulted. I don't know exactly what happened there. A big double kill from Falls and Ion as well. So there's the aggression that we were talking about, as all of Team 1's guns seem to come alive after losing GDN, that sacrifice that they needed onto the smoke. A pivotal operator to lose in the early stretch of a round, and not exactly the gadget that you want to go down with the plant denial that is possible from those toxic canisters. So, I mean, yeah, you lose a pretty pivotal operator, but you trade it off for 3 kills. I think that's pretty worthwhile. Now for BootKamp, there's not a ton of utility left. Yeah, you got a hard breacher, and you've, of course, got your EMP grenades, but as you just saw for a second there, M-King has no X-Kairos left, so it's just raw fragging potential from the Hibana. Also, Bora's gotten it down on the Falls through the soft wall leading all the way into Workshop. Not sure if he's aware of it or not, but we'll have to wait to see if Falls is going to get picked up. There's a drone there, very active, and call coming out that he has indeed downed him, but it does look like part of that construction equipment will get in the way. Panico eliminating M-King means it's all up to Bor. He'll see the head of the castle, and I mean, Castle won't see it coming at all. Panico just obliterated. Falls still down, waiting on Ion and Hugzord. Those 2 speedy GSG-9 operators patiently waiting to strike on Nabor, who is just taking it nice and slow. Falls will bleed out, but Bor will have his work cut out for him. 2 to go, and Hugzord and Ion still waiting. He'll creep up towards the main door from the lobby, trying to head into Workshop. He won't get there. He'll be shut down from Ion, playing from above. And there you go. That's what we needed to see from T1 to bounce back, and I think what their intention was all along. But bigger problem for BootKamp was BootKamp put a huge investment in the first floor, not exactly clearing up that second floor.
Yeah, they did try to exploit the chinks in the armor, but as I talked about earlier, that's where the first kill happened. Duds was just on the main stairs, and he walked into sight. But because BootKamp was ignoring that top 4 roam, like you said, you know, T1 was so well established up there. They had so many angles opened up from above, and they were able to kill any of the attackers that just made a push in to the site. Now, I think that they could have handled that round a little bit differently. I think maybe if BootKamp had just cleared the top floor as they had in the past, then they probably would have had better success. The big concern for me now is the fact that T1 gets to go back to Armory. This should get them a 3rd round, which means they should, by conventional wisdom, get themselves a win in the first half. So that's going to put BootKamp in a tricky position moving forward. Another thing that's concerning for BootKamp is they've now brought a Fuse, which is, you know, a good operator, actually a fantastic operator in certain spots, and I think especially if you're attacking a site like maybe ventilation, can be exceedingly powerful. But I'm not so sure of the application that BootKamp has in mind for an Armory attack. Where are those Fuse charges going to see use is the question. You can see T1 doing their pretty much the same setup they had the first time they went to Armory. They're going to be opening up a lot of the site. Hugzord's going to be substituting a mirror window there on the A wall with his Evil Eye, which is a very powerful substitute that we have seen quite a lot of, especially recently. You know, if you're defending customs, we've said it before, I'll say it again. If you're defending customs, you want a mirror window. But we've been seeing people defend customs when mirror is banned and just bringing a Maestro and, again, using those Evil Eyes to substitute for the lack of a mirror window. It is a totally viable replacement. M-King bringing the shield on Fuse, and we've seen players like Hicks, for example, from Europe, who have had great success on this operator using this shield. Will M-King be able to join the ranks here of those players? He's certainly trying to. Ion will get the first kill, though, onto Intact as he attempts to push the west balcony. I've talked to a few players, and some teams, some players refer to that west balcony as suicide because it can be exceedingly difficult to push, but Duds is making it work. As he takes out Ion, he will be refragged by Falls, the second CCTV player, of which there are 3. M-King will also go down to Falls, and a triple for Falls, sitting inside a CCTV, and Hugzord will get the final kill onto Paula. The open angles working out for T1 yet again.
Man, I don't know what is up with this BootKamp right now, but just struggling all across the board with the defense running it up. When I look at the fact that Mirror and Clash are banned with no hard breacher off the board, I'm a little surprised, frankly, that we're seeing defense be able to do this. My basic theory on operator bans right now is that it's about a wash. This should be pretty even. Border ends up being a pretty even matchup depending on the teams and depending on the operator bans. It doesn't typically skew to one side more than the other, and here we have Team 1 just absolutely clobbering it, just destroying BootKamp. And BootKamp had one solid round, and that's really been it. Everything else has been all Team 1 all the way down.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the open angle play for T1, their aggression has really been working out for them because BootKamp keep trying to establish themselves on the balconies. They keep trying to find a way into the building, and every single time they think they found something, T1 is there to just start fragging out. Falls, by the way, not entirely sure if he's a substitute or a permanent replacement, but he is performing really well today. This is his first match I know of with this team in Pro League, and he's already managed to get himself quite a lot of kills. He's top fragger after the rehost, and before the rehost he still had some work put in. So props to him for just coming out swinging.
Yeah, a great addition to this team, at least so far from what we've seen. I've been quite impressed. So kudos to Falls on his performance. I mean, it could just be a flash in the pan. You know, maybe he's just feeling loose, and it's, you know, he understands he's a substitute. He's not playing for a role. It's just fun and nice to step in and play well. Who knows? It's tough to discern because, I mean, there's obviously emotions and all that stuff at play. But anywho,
it's also just one match. we could see things change up. Now, it is a defense of tellers, so a third site was forced here for T1 as they had been successful in the previous 2 rounds. Ventilation Armory. They had to go somewhere else, and they have chosen tellers over customs. We've seen this from a few teams, and based on how T1 has been playing, I think it makes sense. Although I have to say their presence inside of Office is extremely light, and BootKamp are looking to clamp down on that right now. You could see they're droning out and forcing Hugzord back into Archives. He's eventually just going to drop, and that loss of vertical control is huge for BootKamp. They're going to be able to apply so much pressure from this position. The question is, will they continue to try and hunt the rest of the roamers who are potentially on the top floor over by CCTV, or will they simply isolate Offices and start pushing the site?
I mean, we'll have to take a look here. This is a bit of a change. Paula running the G8A, which is the LMG that is available for IQ. Now, I mean, there's been some debate over the viability of her guns outside of that 5.56 Commando that she typically uses, especially after the recoil changes went in. This is a gun that we've also seen Rogue run a number of times, so it's not that strange to see get employed here in Pro League. Ion, one of the lone members of T1 who was still upstairs, as you'd mentioned, it's the Bandit. First kill. He'll go down.
Yeah. BootKamp having some success earlier in the round. I say early. We've already seen 2 minutes transpire. So while they did manage to get a kill, at what cost? They've isolated those Offices, and they decided to opt for the strategy of, hey, just get Offices, vertical control, and start pressuring the site. You can see T1 is relying on a retake strategy, which is a dangerous strategy to be sure, especially on a site like this, which is so exposed to the outside. But it can work out for you if you play it right. M-King, of course, setting up right now for the push and the plant, and he's going to already be in the site, planting right now. Panico will down somebody, and Duds will eliminate Falls. Just a couple kills here for T1, GDN and Panico working into it. Another for GDN, and another for Panico, and it's all up to M-King, the planter in the site, and he will go down to the retake. Panico, a 3K in the round. Props to him, and great defense there from T1. A simple retake strategy where they waited and baited the site for the defuse plant and started pushing in the last 30 seconds.
I mean, it's one of those things where teams sometimes struggle to make that transition and get it under their feet, and I think that that's exactly what we saw from BK. As they fell, BootKamp were put in a position where everybody was just waiting for them to drop, and the moment they did, then the other shoe dropped, diffuser went down, and Team 1 swarmed them. I mean, you now have Team 1 walking away from that first half 4-1. This is enormous.
So there is something I want to touch on that could be the answer to the question, why is Team 1 up 4-1 after the first half? BootKamp have played this map 4 times in the regular season, and they played it very recently against Liquid. Of course, they won that 6-1. But those 4 times, that leaves so much material for T1 to study up on how you play Order. That last round was a great example of what seemed to be a calculated counter strategy. A retake strategy on tellers is a risk. It's not exactly something you can rely on unless you know your enemy. And it seems like T1 have done their research, and they know that BootKamp are going to be slow on their office take. After their slow office take, they're going to push with very little time left on the clock. And if you simply time your retake properly, you can cripple their assault. And that's exactly what T1 seemed to do in the previous round. And now as they transition to attack, because of their well-calculated strategies on both attack and defense, or well, rather, pardon, just on defense. I meant to say on all of the sites. They will be at a significant advantage going into the second half.
So how will this exactly play out? As you can see, BootKamp still struggling a little bit just to try and get all their setups done on time. They've got lots of utility available to them on site and on the roam. They're going to run with a bit more of an anchor-heavy composition. But T1 is going to waste no time storming the gates. Now pre-fire from Ion through the wall, just all the way down into CCTV. Won't find anybody, though. You can see there were 2 silhouettes nearby already got the sledge in on east stairs, and he'll go to a drone. He also appears to have seen the Echo drone as it just flies upwards. SMG 11 recoil for Ion, a bit too hard to control, and I think wisely he'll put it away, throw out the L85 instead, and there you go. He'll get it. So that's a bit of a gamble there from Paula to go ahead and waste one of those yokais.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like maybe he was trying to get it to the top of East Stairs. To be fair to Paula, Ion managed to push his way into the top of East really quick. He was in there within about 30 seconds. So it was likely that Paula was just trying to position it differently, and he didn't get the opportunity to because he was too slow. But that's on Ion and his efficient take into those East Stairs. Clearly part of the T1 strategy is now they have set themselves up to take into offices. You could see that it is being defended from the middle wall there intact, using his gas canisters to slow up this push as much as he can. He is effectively trapped in this position. He's not going to have a good opportunity to retreat, so he's just trying to take as much time and potentially as many bodies with him as possible.
You hear the phone calls as well from Dokkaebi as it's just BootKamp under heavy fire. Finally, they will get intact as he's down, but Paul is there to bait out his teammate. Takes out Falls, who's top fragging for Team 1. Panico will get credited with the final kill, but a double from BootKamp will put us at a 4v2 in their favor. Hugzord and Panico last alive as Hugzord tries to spring towards the doors of CCTV. He'll get gunned down in the process. Panico will be last one up, and he's just situated inside office. Doesn't look to his left fast enough. Sees Duds, and then does the double take, as it's both Duds and Paula who are there to possibly get the kill. So neither of them missing their shots, and that's BootKamp being able to finally put one on the board after being unable to do so over the last 3 rounds.
So Panico, first one in, last one to die, and BootKamp with a, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4-way crossfire inside of offices. That's vicious. They set up perfectly for that T1 attack, and you know, try as you might, you're really not going to have great success against a 4-way crossfire. That is going to require some great angle isolation on your part, and there was none of that happening for T1. They just didn't seem keen on investing the utility, potentially to try and actually make that go in their favor. I'm imagining the way that it was playing out in their minds was, hey, the office take is only step number 1. We need to get to the site next, and that's where we really want to start diving in with our utility. But if you can't get to step number 2, then you need to use what you can to get past step number 1 in the first place. So a little bit of a miscalculation there from Team 1. It does happen. Well-established defense from BootKamp as well, also. You got to attribute a lot of that to their aggression, which is the same thing we were seeing from T1 when they were on defense. The aggression really paying off.
Yeah, and I think aggression is a really good way of putting it. Both of these teams are now currently playing this full court press where your offense is your best defense for the time being. Both being very, very aggressive when it comes to the way that they're taking these engagements on defense, opening sites up, using their utility, these Echo drones very far off site, Valkyrie cameras far off site, and doing an exemplary job of feeding that information to the rest of their teammates so that even if you are not capable of capitalizing on it, somebody is. And both Team 1 and now BootKamp, at least through that first round that we've seen from BootKamp, we'll keep an eye on whether this is going to be a reoccurring theme for them. But for the time being, it's a good start for BootKamp to be able to get that underway. So what can Team 1 do to adjust? Because they are currently sitting on the cusp of at least a tie. They sit at 4 rounds at the moment, 1 more, and they can guarantee themselves 1 point at least, which will help them, well, just a little bit. I mean, obviously it's not going to be the desired result, but they are still close enough where the playoffs are by no means out of reach.
So T1, same as they were in the previous round, yet again, very quick into the building, and they will already have control of Armory Arsenal. Paula will take out Ion, though, who has been the tip of the spear for T1 many times over. Panico, no follow-up. That really needed to happen, and that will stall out the T1 attack ever so slightly. Fall's just looking for electronics, trying to find if he can give his team some sort of advantage in the utility game, but it's not going to happen. As you see BootKamp being a lot more conservative with their their drones and cameras and such in this round. We're not going to see Paula playing the Echo. He's actually transitioned over to Valkyrie.
Oh, so the castle of Boar spotted inside a bathroom. This is a great line of sight that was opened up by Hugzord here, but instead of bothering to wait to go through the rotate hole, you'll see Boar try to take the engagement. He'll walk out towards the doorway, those double doors by the lobby, but both he and the Zofia will miss, and then that was Boar retreating to Tellers and hopping onto a drone. From above, it's Falls now trying to get his own fight underway. He's got the Bandit of Intact just on the other side of the wall outside of Archives, trying to get a couple shots through that fountain doorway, but he's not got a target in sight. Intact rather, has his teammate Duds there, and that will be Falls falling, quite literally. And once again, BootKamp with a bigger numbers advantage than before. Only 30 seconds to go in round number 7. GDN is in sight amazingly and can start to go for a plant, but he'll be taken out. Duds, Paula, and M-King in a frenzy of kills. 3 for BootKamp on the board. That's a flawless round.
Yeah.
Or as flawless a round as you can get, rather, in terms of the way that that was executed by BootKamp. So overall, excellent. They're going to continue to endeavor to close that gap. It's still 4-3 in favor of T1, but this lead is slipping away real quick.
The interesting thing for me there is that it was a Tellers defense, and Team 1 were about as far from Tellers as they could have possibly been. They were taking from Armory, of all places. Usually, on Tellers, you'd see Office be the main focus of the attack, but not so here for T1. And it seems as though the T1 attacks are kind of harmless. I mean, we've seen a lot of... I like the way that Ion, as an example, playing Sledge, is getting into those power positions so early into the round. He seems dead focused on it, and he's got his teammates to drone him in, and it's all looking great. But as soon as he gets into a fight, then he tends to lose it, and the advantage slips away from his team. So you can get into the building early if you want, sure, but you need to actually be able to do something with that. Now, BootKamp are looking to recover this map, and they managed to win 2 in a round now. 2 in a round now. I just said that. 2 in a row now. But they're going to have to get 1 more to even it out, and 2 more if they want to guarantee themselves that draw. They get to go to ventilation because they defended Tellers previously, which is going to be just a little bit more comfortable. However, based on the way the Team 1 have been playing, I think that while it will be a more comfortable defense for BootKamp in all likelihood, it will also be a more comfortable attack for T1.
That's right. I had incorrectly said that GDN was playing inside a site, but he was where the bomb in A was, but it was Tellers there looking towards the bomb inside a bathroom. So
I mean, it makes sense. Because it was a weird site pick.
Well, I mean, in the heat of the moment when you're trying to do all that, those kind of things do pop up. Anywho, so a lead that was strongly in favor of Team 1, slowly falling out of reach. Still an opportunity for them to go on to match point here, but this aggression that T1 had on defense is not translated onto attack. They look a little lost, if we can say that much. And they'll have to once again confront that upstairs roaming power of BootKamp. This off-site play from both teams has been quite good, with the exception of 1 round on defense. And really, the story has been all defense the whole way. Only 1 victory for the attackers so far. It came for BK in that 2nd round.
Yeah. So, BK looking much, much better on defense, for sure. T1, on the other hand, while they have looked like they're poised and positioned so well, and they're leaning forward, they got their fists up, and they look like they can really throw down. They haven't really actually had much success once they get into a fight. As soon as T1 starts entering into an engagement with BootKamp on T1's attack, they've been struggling, and that's of course, all that really matters in the end. So they're going to need to change that if they want to start winning this match again. They are still in the lead, though, despite those 2-round failures. And this is definitely not over yet. Paula, though, will start things off well for BootKamp, taking out Falls, the T1 top fragger. And now, again, it's looking kind of complicated for the attack. GDN going to feel pressured by the Bandit, who is very likely tricking, and he's all alone, so he's got no one to support him. But Ion from the side will actually take out Intact, and this crossfire is going to force the BootKamp roamers to fall back to site. Great decision there. They managed to waste quite a lot of time, only 42 seconds left. So the job is done on the top floor for BootKamp, and now they have to feel the wrath of T1 from above.
And there you go. Duds will get the first kill in this transition towards an execute now onto Ion. There'll be 2 that have gone down. The Sledge being relieved of his duties. The soft destruction will be off the board, as well as any remaining grenades that he might have had in his pocket. Final push will have to be underway now, as T1, you can tell, is scrambling. They're trying to readjust and plot a new course towards the site. There'll be one body heading down the main stairs. He'll meet the M-King's LMG head on. Hugzord will pay for that. And now Paula and GDN, and a great read on Depanico, and BootKamp has tied things up at 4 apiece.
Jeez.
This has been quite a comeback here, and what a story for the defense so far. Excellent coordination. And I think worth noting that Falls has really not been able to get anything going on attack. Now, it's one of those things where easier for him to possibly transition as a substitute on defense, knowing the strats, etc. Much more difficult on attack to be able to get that with the rest of your team.
Would you say that Falls has... you know, he just shook his head ever so slightly, rolled his eyes back, and now I can't say it. It was beautiful. I'm so sorry you guys couldn't see it. But, yeah, the defense, the story here, I would say, as BootKamp are going to get to go back to Armory. They actually are in a much better position than T1. Despite, this is kind of hilarious, actually. T1 just outright won the very first half. But because BootKamp salvaged a single round out of it, now that they get to go to defense and that they haven't let that round slip yet, they're going to go back to their main site, Armory. And this is where they get to just, you know, force out that draw, if not outright win, by getting the 5th point. And this is, you know, Armory is the site. It's the site where you are expected to get that victory. So it's very likely here that BootKamp are going to put it up 5-4 in their favor. And we could see a draw, but the way that this has been playing out, maybe not, because it's just been defense, defense, defense the whole match, except for, again, that very singular round, and that was in BootKamp's favor. So they're in a great spot right now.
5 seconds left.
I mean, that was one of the more, I would say, one of the more reserved defenses that we saw. BootKamp got most of those kills in the dying moments. You know, they were able to pick off Falls early on, but I think a part of that has been Falls having a bit of a loose entry. He's been kind of doing his own thing and not really either having cover, either because of the team or simply because he's still new and trying to learn the ropes. And that's what I said. It's much easier for him to pull his own weight when it comes to defense, because typically for a lot of these teams, there's a lot more solidified defensive strats. Whereas on attack, it typically ends up being a bit more free-flowing for some teams. Now, I mean, this obviously isn't the golden rule, so it's easy to impress on defense. It's a lot harder to be able to coordinate in synchronization with the rest of your team on attack.
There are very few teams in Pro League these days that will have rigid attack strategies. One of the few is, as an example, is Vitality. They'll have, you know, calculated, you know, rigid attack strategies that will take a lot of time to play out, but they're definitely a lot more solid, but they also leave you open to losing to just time alone. And some teams will fall victim to that, but not so here in this match, and very uncommon, a very uncommon trait in Latin America.
There was a great drone there that's on Intact, and you can see that they've spotted him. I don't expect him to live that much longer. He was just able to dodge the one frag grenade that was tossed in by Ion. They had a drone situated in the room up top, giving info onto where the smoke is. They'd got an early pinch onto Intact a couple rounds ago. He's just going to try to play as much of a proactive defense as he can, but he'll end up getting flashed. He does have Boar playing inside a fountain, so if he needs a possible teammate to double up on him, he'll have it. But I mean, there you go. Panic ends up killing Ion. Oh no, the Sledge just wanders in the way. Here's Duds, big double kill for Duds. Onto East Stairs. He stares out onto the balcony, and this round might have just been salvaged by the great play of the Jaeger to give that give that information to the rest of his team and then pounce on it himself.
Yeah, definitely seems like BootKamp have forced us to the 5-4 unless GDN and Falls have something to say about it, though. They're going to have to scream pretty loud to make it work here, as they've only got a little bit of time left, and they have nothing really going in their favor. Dud's another run out. He's just on top of the attack, and M-King will also get Falls. So BootKamp completely shut out T1, as is typical on this border defense. That was a nice shot. And we see it go 5-4, BootKamp's favor. They are also looking like they are just going to get the outright win, the way that defense has been playing out. They're going to have to go to Tellers to do it, but still, they were pretty dominant on that Tellers defense. I think the adjustment that needs to be made here for T1 in order for them to draw this is they need to attack from a different angle, because the last time they attacked Tellers, they came from Armory, and it was just a slog. It was a slow grind in through Armory, and they kept losing bodies along the way.
Yeah. I mean, there's very clearly something that's going wrong with all the attacks here.
All of the attacks.
And like I said, the only one that BootKamp won was when Team 1 just absolutely fell apart. It was like trying to, it was like trying to stop a charging bull with a wet paper bag. It wasn't, it wasn't going anywhere. It just got absolutely shredded. So
And that round, honestly, it kind of looked like T1 just got a little bit unlucky.
I mean, it was a defensive collapse more than it was a great read from the attackers. And so you end up with a situation where 9 rounds now have been won by the defense, largely because of good defensive efforts, and 1 round that was won by attackers was won by mistakes committed by the defense rather than great entry and great execution from the attackers. 2 of those kills, 2 of the opening kills for BK when they were on attack on BootKamp were absolute freebies.
Yeah, I gotta say, another thing, usually I'll mention this as soon as I see it, but it's been happening actually every single round. The attack is all over the place, no matter what. They're just all over the place. There have been very few rounds where there's a concerted effort on taking one particular location, and when there is, it just seems like it works against the attack somehow. Like that, for example, the run out that we just saw with Duds from the east stairs onto the balcony, that saw the collapse of the entire attack, and that was it was one of the few rounds where the attackers were coming from one location trying to take office, and it just didn't work out great for them. It's another thing. Where are the tools that are so typically used to clear something like office? Maybe try nading from above. There's an ADS, we'll clear out the ADS then, and then nade from above. Why are these tools not being utilized? Usually there's a step-by-step process to take something like that, and when your opponents are so entrenched in a location like office, there are things you can do to prevent that. Smoke grenades to isolate the angles. Again, grenades to deal with the smoke playing so close. Pre-firing the position on that top of that shelf, that's easy. All that said, though, Falls gets a kill and then Panico another. Intact able to get one before his teammates go down, so it's not all over for BootKamp. But this is a great attack already for Team 1. This is as close as they've looked to a win so far in this half.
And I mean, they just took the lead, and there's going to be another as Ion gets a great read through that open barricade, and M-King is just dispatched very, very quickly, going from the Maestro this time onto the Alibi, I suppose, throwing everything at the wall and seeing what could stick. You've still got a very powerful gun in the hands of Bandit and the MP7. Intact has yet to find a kill this entire match, though, and it's the final round, so it's do or die, or he'll be walking away with 0. Looked like he almost got one on the Panico, but the Ash will escape with just a tiny portion of HP. Intact will find his first one, another team kill from Team 1, so that'll be a gift, but Intact has been downed, and everything for BootKamp rests in the hands of Boar, the newest member to the team, former coach of FaZe. He's got a UMP in his hands, so not exactly a high rate of fire weapon, but steady enough that if you're clicking in the right location, you can chew right through both Hugzord and Ion. And Ion holding that diffuser down, with Hugzord getting ever closer. Boar inside of Tellers. He'll get concussed, and you got to suspect that they know that his location is somewhere nearby.
And he was droned out earlier by one of the T1 players, and because of that, A will be isolated, and it's not going to matter. Hugzord gets the final kill, T1 win their very first attack, and it is 8 defense wins and 2 attack wins to give us a draw.
How heartbreaking for BootKamp after a real slog to get back up there and fall just short. So both teams will walk away with 1 point. For Team 1, who's looking to try to close that gap, at least they'll be able to overtake Immortals for the time being. Immortals is in our next match up against Black Dragons, and I mean, that's going to be your 3rd place versus your 7th place team. So a good opportunity for Immortals to walk away with a point at minimum there.